Yeah, so he said, hey guys, it's been brought to my attention that a document I wrote many months ago has been leaked. I want to make it clear that this is not something I wanted out publicly. The document was leaked by someone I had asked for advice and support who chose to maliciously violate my trust. A while ago, Poki and I spoke about what happened. We came to agree that keeping things private and making no further statements publicly was what was best for both of us. To keep the document private, we wanted to heal and prevent any further harm to the people involved. She would make a brief supportive statement when I returned, and we would go our separate ways. No more drama and not reopening old wounds. Sorry, I sound like a YouTube vlogger talking so damn fast. We were both happy with this agreement and the peace of mind that came with it, but one of the people I had turned to for advice and support when I needed it the most violated my trust, sending the document to streamers. I just want to apologize, as I do feel responsible for such extremely sensitive and private conversations to be aired out like dirty laundry. When I wrote this statement months ago, I was encouraged by my friends to write out my side of things. However, I did it while feeling extremely vindictive, as I felt that someone that I once deeply cared for inaccurately spoke out against me. To this day, I do believe that I was mischaracterized. However, after talking to Poki, I came to understand her perspective and decision making. My outlook on the situation as a whole now comes from a better place of understanding. Also, yeah, let me mute alerts. I'm sorry, I feel a bit of a I feel like I need to put chat in sub mode just to keep it civil whatsoever. However, I do want to make sure that I don't ever need to fucking do this ever again. So I will have brief breaks where I take it off sub mode and you guys can let me know if you have any questions or clarifications that are needed. My outlook on the situation as a whole now comes from a better place of understanding. Additionally, after hearing her side about Yvonne almost being fired, it was made clear to me that the point of her bringing that up wasn't to allude to the false claim I wanted her fired, but more so to highlight the fact that her lack of motivation to work with me stemmed from her feeling uncomfortable because of our incident, which again, as I said in the document, I'm deeply sorry for and wish I wasn't so naive and insensitive. On the topic of whether I tried to manipulate our friends to hate her, I still fully stand behind what my document reads, but want to further emphasize that although it wasn't my intention to shine Poki in a bad light when I'd vent/confide to our friends about my frustrations, the side effect was that many of our friends perceived her differently and in turn avoided pursuing friendships with her. They then admitted this to her after the intervention, so I now better understand why she felt manipulated. I know a lot of details surrounding the nature of our friendship were shown, but I'd like to first prevent any further speculation by saying we were never intimate or in a relationship. Poki and I are very close and often flirty, but that was the extent of it. I know the way things unfold in the document, it seems like I'm alluding to her leading me on, but I don't believe that and think that the truth is somewhere in between. We both made mistakes and have owned up to them privately. I hope everyone reading will try to move on from all this, as we certainly have already. Please respect our privacy and avoid further sharing or discussing this leak, as it's a gross invasion of privacy and I regret that it was made public. So, yeah, we're gonna kind of go through it one by one. Okay, now I actually muted alerts. So, I'll just get into it, and if there's anything I need to say, then we'll get around to it. So he just starts off saying, hey guys, what, I know, it's really long, so can I just ask, from your guys' perspective, do you care more about the specific points, or is it easier to literally go through the whole thing? Okay, I'm gonna try to focus, like, I'm not gonna skip over anything unless it is completely not pertaining to me. And I will try to focus on, yeah, the actual points. So, hey guys, it's been a while, it's been about 2 months now. I wanna start off with this, actually, not really pertaining, but I wanna say, I've seen this document. I've seen 3 versions of this document already. Because as you can tell, it was made months ago. It has not been 2 months since the incident. So it's been sent to a few friends of mine. I received it, and me and Fed spoke about it a while ago. Sorry, I have my, you know, the stuff that I want to share on the side here. So if you see me look to the side, that's what it is, just so I don't miss anything. Yeah, it was actually the first, when I confronted him about finding out about this document, it was the first time that we've spoken since everything unfolded. And it wasn't easy, but we came to a decent understanding of each other, and wanting to handle it privately, which is why it's so unfortunate that this was leaked anyways. Very unfortunate. So yeah, I'm gonna try to go through the parts specific to me. I think this is all mainly just like stuff about him, so I'm gonna skip over this. And he says that basically the purpose is that when he saw my stream where I talked about him, he feels like it painted him in a very negative light. He says, I definitely did some questionable things and broke her trust, but there are some claims she makes about me, Yvonne and I, just friends, and herself, that are either false, twisting the truth, or misconstrued. I understand from his perspective it seems like that, but obviously I feel like I also spoke my truth. At the end of the day, you know, there's two sides to every story, so I'm going to be addressing these claims as well as giving context to mostly everything that was mentioned on our stream, since I feel that is very important and personal to me. Oh, this is so long. This Foki thing all started as a joke when I made a picture. I mean, Poki has my phone background, obviously. So he's basically saying there was a Taiwan trip, February 14th, 2018. Valentine's Day, woo. Almost 3 years ago now. And that was the first time that, like, you know, me and Fed had, like, flirted or gotten close, or essentially it was when we first started getting close. You guys fucking eating popcorn? Fuck you guys. This is my real life. A lot of good moments came from that trip. It felt like the honeymoon phase of getting to know someone, and that's what it was. This was the first time we talked and looked at each other differently. We discussed a blah, 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 blah. By the way, if I blah, blah anything you guys find as important, please let me know. It's just things that I feel like don't have much to say about. We came back from Taiwan and kept being close, started hanging out a lot, talking a lot, blah, blah, blah. It was pretty obvious to our friends and roommates something was going on, but no one really asked about it. Just details about us hanging out, watching stuff together. We did get very close, that's true. And, oh my gosh. Insert very cringy text messages that have no place on the internet, but yeah, I mean, essentially, me and Fed had just gotten really close, although we obviously weren't, like, dating. We were, like, talking, you know? And we lived together. It's like, yeah, we were able to hang out a lot, and we worked together, so, yeah, we became close. In March 2018, we had an honest discussion about the direction we were heading, and she brought up some notable problems. A, that we live together and could be a problem if things don't work out, and B, we are board members / own equity of the company that we work for. This could be a conflict of interest and could get nasty if things didn't work out between us. So I am very much of that mindset where it's like, if there are so many conflicts in regards to me pursuing something with someone, I am highly unlikely to do it unless I felt like, wow, like this is the person for me. Sorry, I need to let my cat in. Yep, come on in. You can enjoy the show too. I'm so sorry if you guys hear that sound. Skipping the pictures? Oh, I'm sorry. They're really just cringe. You know? It's like, Fetty, Weddy. Or like, you look cute. Oh, you made me blush. Like, it's really just cringe. But yeah, definitely this was like the first time we got to know each other, and therefore like kind of the flirtiest time in my opinion. But then I was like, we can't really do this unless, again, I feel like this is something we seriously want to pursue. April / May 2018, pretty much the same as March, except she was traveling a lot. We texted and FaceTimed, and would call each other cute stuff. Like, we're obviously acting coupley here, none of us were apart. We FaceTime. I super felt like we were disregarding the conversation we had in March and kind of just going with the flow. Obviously, I'm excited about this because by this time, I liked her enough that I wanted to try to be serious / exclusive. And more Do you miss me? You're cute. Blah, blah, blah. Upcoming are some parts that are, well, yeah. So EDC 2018 comes around, a music festival in May, and he was roommates with someone. Of course, it was pretty obvious to him that I was texting Pokey, and I actually remember this, that we were texting, and I think just like alluding to our manager and Josh that we were talking. And he goes on to say like I'm a really private person and that he shouldn't have alluded to someone that we were talking. But actually, in this instance, we really like this was the first time that we started talking, and we were starting to talk pretty seriously, and I was like, I need to figure out whether this is something that I want to pursue and risk the conflict of interest or just something I'm not interested in. So I actually don't really care about this at all. Where he's like, I shouldn't have overshared. This was not my issue at this point in time. We FaceTimed in the morning. I don't even remember any of this, to be honest. She called me out on using language like that in front of people, which is true. Like, I don't really want to act coupley until I make that decision to be coupley. And again, I was still, like, trying to figure it out. I feel like I need to understand the boy scene a little bit more. I mean, you know, I was, like, 20, 21, in LA, single, freshly in LA, whatever the heck, right? I wanted to be sure of whoever I was going to pursue. And also for Fed, as I said here, also he should date around, because like I also didn't like the online pressure of people shipping us, and I don't like the idea of like falling into it just because there's pressure. I think it is much healthier to like get a good lay of the land and pursue someone because you genuinely like them, not just because there's like internet attention around your names. For me then, this came out of left field and I felt pretty stupid. I was hurt, blah, blah. I do remember having this conversation and I was investing so much time. I was trying to be understanding, but it brought up a lot of insecurities and notions of not being good enough. And for me, it was like, I just need to figure out whether I like actually like someone or not. For both of us, emotions always made things so complicated. I wish I was better at navigating them earlier. After taking time to understand her concerns, I came around to her unease. She wanted to be sure of her feelings and not just there because we were accessible to each other. That too. I was like, we're physically really close, and that makes you feel like maybe someone's like the right person, but anyways. Oh my god, this is so cringe because like, I'm not like massively older and massively more mature, but I really was that. I was like, don't like call me pet names unless we're dating. Because I feel like just a line I draw, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, whatever. Yeah, I was like, I want to be very private until I make the jump, then I don't care, because that's just how it be with me. But at the same time, like, it was difficult to navigate because obviously he was someone I cared about and I didn't want to hurt his feelings in any way. And also someone I lived with and also someone I worked with. So again, a fragile connection in a sense. By now you can see there's a cycle of talking again and then, oh wait, there's a problem. This cycle continued throughout the years and every time it didn't work out. I think I also part of myself more and more. I started to realize maybe I'm not good enough. The things the cycle did to me were fucked. I became more and more frustrated. I started to become jealous, insecure at times. I would act out sometimes, lock myself in my room all day and stream Pokemon for the entire day to avoid her. I would go over to just friends, another streamer house, and vent about my frustrations. So I'd like to elaborate on this. For me, that's kind of the awkward thing. So for me, and I think it's a part he skipped over in his document, but there's VODs of this. After EDC, I went to Canada around that time to visit my parents, and he had surprise visited me in Canada. Again, around the time that we first started talking, and I was like, do I like him, do I not? And then when he showed up, I was really flattered by that because I don't have like a shit ton of dating experience and no one had ever done such like an extravagant thing per se to surprise me. So I was like, oh, maybe I should give him a chance. And so in Canada, I was like trying to open my heart up to the idea a bit more. But I realized it just didn't feel right, essentially. And I was like, oh, okay, now I know Like, this is not something that I want to pursue. So when we came back home, again, May-ish, I had that talk with him. May 2018, I believe. I had that talk with him. And I was like, because I remember it was an emotional talk. And I was like, listen, dog, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm so not used to talking about private stuff, so yeah. I think you guys get the point. So I think to him, to me, it was like, I've had this conversation with you, and now, like, admittedly, in hindsight, it was selfish that, like, I wanted to, like, still be friends and still be close. But I think he read that as, like, signs of maybe wanting more. But in my mind, I was like, I already had this convo with you of, like, not wanting more. So but also, there was, like, this cycle of, like, we'd get close and I'd be like, I think, like, you think this is headed in a way that it's not headed. Like, we can't be, like, this close. Because, like, boundaries would be pushed and blah, blah, blah. So, since we're on that subject, oh my god, I just realized I am not reading my side of the document at all. So, I'm just going to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Taiwan trip, 3 years ago was the first time me and Fed got close, had any sort of flirty interaction, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, saying the private cringy flirty text, they're kind of whatever. Anyone who's ever flirted with anyone probably has cringy texts like that. I want to reiterate that even though these are out, my personal life is still my right to discuss publicly as little or as much as I personally desire. I also want to say that I feel he implied we were heavily involved when me and Fed were never intimate, we were never sexual, and also I knew, and anyone who has watched his stream, like, he's kind of a flirty guy, right? So as cringy as these are, I don't think these texts from 3 years ago are indicative of much in regards to the things that I said were problematic in my first stream, which I will get to. Oh, yes. So essentially, people reading this document may feel like I lied about there being something going on between me and Fed. I understand where that comes from completely, and just want to explain that I was trying to share a very specific instance where I felt Fed lied about the state of our friendship or relationship, and it happened much later than these texts in Taiwan. It happened way after May when he visited, and I had that conversation with him of like, listen, I just want to be friends. So that's why, in my mind, I was saying, like, this was so after the time that we were involved. I knew, and I think he knew, that it was inappropriate for him to say to, he brings up Steve later, I don't even know where. That's the incident that I was actually referring to. So later, after the conversation in May, I'm like, we're just friends. I think this was like summer, July, June. Steve is a random fucking name, let's be honest. So, yeah, I think, genuinely speaking, I can't say that either of us maneuvered the situation as best as we could, but I always tried to be so upfront about, like, I just want to be friends. I'm seeing other people. Like, yeah, I want to be close to you. I obviously still want to be your friend. Like, you're a really important person in my life, and I understand those signs are probably misconstrued. But that's why I was so open about, like, oh, I'm really excited for, like, this person to come to the party. I want to talk to this person, that person, blah, blah, blah. So that's what happened. He told Steve, essentially, that we were a thing long after I had this conversation with him about, I just want to be friends. So that's why I mentioned that specific part on my stream. So I understand now people are like, yeah, but you guys flirted, so you had a thing. In my mind, it was like, we flirt here, we end here. And then he fucks up way over here. I hope that makes sense. I also wanted to showcase only one screenshot because, yeah, I'm not really here to air dirty laundry. But I want to make it clear that, to me, this was an incident with Steve, an incident that was very clearly a mess up on Fed's part, because when he told Steve that night, oh yeah, me and Pokey have a thing, Steve told me, and I said, no, we don't. I confronted Fed about it. Fed apologized and said, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Like, yeah, it was my bad. I didn't want something happening, blah, blah, blah. So to me, it was like, oh, you admitted fault. Like, you know that what you did was wrong. And also, prior to the first stream I did where I spoke about everything, I messaged Fed and I said, I'm going to speak out about things because I feel like people are being really harsh towards Lily and Yvonne and they're not believing them. Is there anything that you would really want me to leave out? I don't know if I can accommodate, but I also don't want to make things terribly difficult for you. I won't mention or super personal details, mainly some lies and instances where people felt manipulated. And he said, if you can find it in you to leave out telling, like the situation where I told Steve that you and I were a thing, it's something I would just not like mentioned, but I understand if not. Otherwise, I trust you, and I think doing what's best for Lily and Yvonne's comfort is the right play. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't leave that out because it's the best/easiest example I can give of lying or like some form of manipulation. So again, this is the only thing I am willing to include, like just as an actual fact check of like, he asked me not to mention this thing, which to me is like an admission of guilt essentially. But now, months later, he's saying, oh no, that's not how it went down. And you know what? It's his prerogative to say that. But obviously, I have been told and have been believing what I've been told for however long. So that was my truth in regards to this happening. All right. So yeah. Essentially, we just had trouble being close, but managing a friendship, especially knowing he wanted more, but I was always upfront. Well, I always felt I was upfront about how I felt and what he could or couldn't expect from me. Obviously, we probably were not on the same page. We were essentially in a difficult to maneuver situation. It really bothered me that in this document, he tried so hard to paint me as the bad guy or like leading him on when I felt I was always honest. And I know there are parts in here where he's like, yeah, and sometimes she would like hang out with guys at the house and it was like, it felt really bad for me. And you know what? I get that, but I hope you guys can also see from my perspective, that was me trying to be upfront about like, I am dating, I am seeing people, like, again, I am not pursuing a future between the two of us. So I hope you guys can kind of see how there's two sides to that. And again, I never wanted to intentionally hurt him or want him to feel bad. Obviously, I, at this point, don't think he was trying to do that to me either. Just think that some moments were like really inconsiderate. But anyways, looking back, I should have been more aware and careful of how I acted around him, so there are no signals to misread, but you know, hindsight 2020. And I learned a lot from the situation. To me, in all honesty, it's really, all of this is really not all that important. It's regular 20-year-old relationship bullshit. He said, she said, blah, blah, you know, nothing that important happened, in my opinion. What I shared about the Steve situation is my honest truth. And I feel like it is just really irrelevant in comparison to the incident that actually triggered all of this, if that makes sense. I don't even know where I left off. My general allowed to a friend to talk to. Oh, yes, I think this is a good place to go. So, since we're on that subject, in her stream she mentioned I would try to manipulate just friends, which is like our friends, to hate her or not be her friend. That's unfoundedly slanderous. I'm so sorry, that wording makes me laugh a bit. My intention was always that I wanted a friend to talk to. Lily was probably sick of hearing the same story between us every 3 months. Thanks for always listening to me anyway, Lily. Probably true. And can I just say, like, everything over the last, like, 3 years just makes me realize that, like, as much as me and Fed, like, kind of got along, we just are such different people and we see things so differently. So the way he sees it is like, oh, I'm just like venting to my friends because I need to let my emotions out. For me, I tried really hard not to vent to people within or very close to OTV about Fed, because I knew that essentially it's kind of like shit talking him, and then they're gonna see him differently, and it's just gonna fuck with the dynamic. But I don't think he realized that aspect of things. So he said, I wanted nothing more than for everyone to be friends with Pokey, so let me give a little context here since that was never provided. Pokey always goes to bed at midnight every night without fail, and if she doesn't, something's really wrong. And if she stays up longer, she gets crazy in a funny way. Sometimes true. She takes the AM streaming slots, as most of you know, so that requires good sleep. Obviously, of course, after my stream, I'd always seek quality time with her, and that would generally involve dinner and a show. Some nights we would eat downstairs and other nights on her bed, so if I stopped the stream at 10 p.m., I'd hang with her till midnight. Then I would F off and hang out the rest of the house and go hang out at just friends. I'd primarily vent to one of the girls about everything. She'd always give me a good female's perspective and made me feel like it was going to be okay. It was in some sense therapeutic. I'd rarely talk to the other girls about my issues with Pokey. From my perspective and from what I've heard, that doesn't seem true. He also mentions talking to Lily. He mentions talking to another girl at just friends, and again, just not what I really heard. It's just nuts to hear now that I was being manipulative and trying to make the girls hate her, leave her out intentionally. That's complete bullshit. I just wanted someone to talk to that could guide me through those emotions. It's also difficult to now hear some of the girls say that they looked at me as a member of OTV and not just a friend, like I looked at them. I understand that although my intentions were innocent, the unintentional side effect is that the just friends people might have seen her differently. I'm deeply sorry, and I wish I was more aware of those repercussions. I do, however, think intentions matter when you're characterizing someone as a manipulator in front of thousands of people. So, essentially, he was very frustrated by the fact that I was saying all of these people around me have come to me and told me that they essentially avoided being my friend because of things you had told them. And that made them feel manipulated. That made me feel manipulated. But it wasn't his intention, and he wasn't trying to be manipulative. So you see how it's a bit of a fine line. He was really unhappy being painted as a manipulator, when in reality, he was just inconsiderate in the way that he was talking about me. But to us, it just felt manipulative, because we're like, oh, we just missed out on friendships we could have had all along, essentially. And it makes me deeply uncomfortable to see someone essentially like psychoanalyze me and provide all of these, in my opinion, irrelevant details in regards to my life. I know he's kind of trying to like take the blame off of how he might have impacted potential friendships, but to me, it's just unnecessary. So I'm gonna read. I might be repeating some things, but I want to read what I wrote. So yeah, again, actually I'll finish reading this paragraph and then I'll say it. If she was really afraid of being alienated, she would have taken the time out of her day to be their friend. She didn't stream every day. She could have gone over just to hang like I did so many times on my off days. None of the things I would ever say to just friends would ever imply that they shouldn't be friends with her. It was only ever typical relationship issues and how do I get over it type conversations. It's crazy to me that things are being said otherwise. There wasn't a looming dark cloud of malice towards her in that house. This is the truth. Pokey would generally only come over if there was something she could tangibly benefit from in some way. Large streaming events, midnight birthday streams. It's the same reason you never saw her come into people's streams at OTV. And when she wasn't streaming, she was also always grinding or practicing whatever game she wanted to get better at for stream. I don't want to go into this too deep. Sorry. Because I'm not here to attack her character, but it's just the way things were. She had her priorities, we had ours. I'm sure she's gotten better at it now. Midnight hangout sessions at Just Friends, LOLY. She applies this kind of philosophy to so many things in her life. It truly disappointed me because I and people in the house wanted her more in our lives. I get it, she was driven by her business and stream. It's just wild that I'm the scapegoat now for her not wanting to make sacrifices to go over Just Friends. I don't feel that is fair at all. Okay. My side. Hello, it is me, Pokey, the actual person doing these things. It is so weird to, like, by a friend try to be painted as, like, this, like, ruthless businesswoman. Like, yeah, I mean, streaming is such a cool career. Of course, it's something that I care about a lot, that I was especially really interested in then. I've learned to balance my life a bit better. But I just want to say these are none of the reasons why it was sometimes difficult for me to hang out with other people. It wasn't because I wanted something out of them. I mean, I can't even recall anything that I could gain from like streaming events at other people's houses, midnight birthday streams. I'm like one head in the back of like 20. But the reason these were a bit easier for me to go to is because like, well, it's someone's birthday. I want to go say happy birthday. But when it comes to like, oh, let me just Uber over to their house at a point in time where I didn't have solid friendships with these people. And also, as I have tried to state earlier, essentially like the things that he had said to people, I could tell that there were just bad vibes. You know what I mean? I think you guys know what I mean. Like sometimes you get that sentiment that someone just sees you differently or like isn't really open to wanting to be your friend. That's why like I couldn't drive over at 10 p.m. like he perhaps felt comfortable to, and I felt more comfortable in large settings. Or for birthdays where I felt like it made sense for me to come over and say happy birthday. In a sense, that was like a step that I was trying to take to be supportive. And I actually remember, like, I remember this thought pattern that I had a lot and that I even shared with him where I was like, oh, like, do you think I, like, come off as intimidating to some people or something? Like, am I hard to approach? Sometimes I want to be friends with people, but I feel like I don't get that same feeling back. So I know this is something I shared with him, and it has nothing to do with me profiting off of, like, oh my god, lol, I don't even know, you know? So yeah. That's my take, and I think the best testament to all of this is just the fact that in the last 6 months, and I'm not saying this is entirely Fed's fault, to some extent it was also me, but I know that after the intervention, it felt like there was like this barrier lifted from between me and so many other people, and now my friendships with people in OTV, with just friends, with our friends in general, is just like tremendously better than it was before. Y'all seen me be up late and shit, okay? So it wasn't that like I always felt I had to stream at a certain time, but it was also like I needed to feel like really invited or really welcomed, and I just didn't back then. So yeah. I feel like I'm talking a mile a minute. I'm gonna finish just this part about like friendships and stuff, and then I will ask you guys if you have any questions before we move on to the rest. So yeah, again, this part makes me uncomfortable to read, and maybe you guys can relate. But when you see someone else psychoanalyze you to kind of arrive to whatever conclusion they want to get to, it just feels weird. Like me waking up early, like sure, I like a nice sleep schedule, but you guys have seen me stay up hella late for Among Us streams or for whatever, as long as I have the company to do it with and I feel welcomed. It just feels weird, but the point is, me and Fed spoke about this when I first learned of this document weeks ago. He felt that what I said on stream made it seem like he manipulated people around me into not wanting to be my friend, and he was upset because we didn't mention that that wasn't his intention. He didn't mean to have that impact, even though he did. He was just being inconsiderate in regards to the way he spoke about me to my friends. And I believe this. I don't think he was actively trying to make people not want to be my friend, even though that's what he ended up doing. And this wasn't a conclusion that I tried to come to at all. It was one that was almost like hurtfully thrown in my face when we held these interventions. And I spoke out about my feelings, and so many people came up to me and apologized and told me that they saw me in a different light because of things Fed said, and that they were just so sorry that they like really put no effort into trying to be friends, or yeah, they just had this perception of me already, which, mind you, is also a very common thing online. Like I have people come in my chat and they're like, just heard all these people shit talk you or like these weird videos, but I actually watch your streams and I really like you now. Like it's essentially that, to be honest. So yeah, the same thing has happened to me. You know, sometimes he has mentioned certain things to me, and maybe he doesn't think that it'll have an impact on the way that I see someone, but it does, and then I kind of avoid being their friend. But then later on, I find out that they're actually really great people I would have gotten along with. And it's something that just happens in friend groups, okay? It just fucking happens. Unfortunately, the way it happened with Fed was like a bit of a larger scale and a bit more only about me. Yeah. So it was unfortunate, it was unintentional, but nonetheless, it did occur. So, yeah, and the last part I just say, like, yeah, I talk about my schedule and bedtime, blah, 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 but I think it's kind of easy to see that I'm just much closer with everybody now, and I'm so happy about that, and it feels so nice to know that, like, even when something like this comes out, like, I have friends that I know will support me, and that really know and like just truly genuinely know who I am now, and I think that is just priceless. So yeah, so far as to the things that we've covered, are there any questions or things that I might have skimmed over? Subscription, this one. Any important questions? Oh geez, oh geez, oh geez. My bad. I will talk about the Jody thing once we get there. Do not worry, I will. Sorry you had to go through this. I appreciate that. I want up. I want up. Can any specific questions? You know, doesn't seem like it. Would you ever consider mutual forgiveness? I think we're essentially at that point. It's just unfortunate that this came out. If there's anything I skipped, just please say it specifically. What about how one of the screenshots directly contradicts your previous statement about Yvonne? Which one specifically? Also, we haven't gotten there yet, actually. I haven't addressed the Yvonne situation or anything below it. So far, we've talked about my personal relationship with Fed and the friendship situation. Could you rephrase what you said about being closer to your friends? Sounds like Fed's downfall was a positive event. I don't want to interpret wrong. No, it's not Fed's downfall. It's just that the intervention kind of helped people realize that they had certain perceptions of me that stopped them from wanting to be my friend. And after that, it was like a barrier was lifted, and then we were able to be better friends, luckily. I put chat in sub mode because it is so boom. In terms of like a flirty cringe text, it's like it just is what it is, honestly. I don't really know what else to say. It's like, yeah, I feel like that's very normal, like, but again, we just like, we never crossed that line. I said it, he said it, it just is what it is, and I don't like that kind of stuff being out there. I mean, I know people will make their assumptions, but why else would we clarify that personally? I did see Fed's tweet. How did it get leaked? He shared it with someone that I guess was not a very trustworthy person, and they leaked it. Yep. I can't find the, okay. No hate, do you think you led on Fed slightly to the point where most people would consider you two as seeing each other? I think there was a point, again, at first, like at EDC, that I was like, yeah, no, we were talking at that point. That's why I wasn't mad that he told Josh that we were like talking to each other or seeing each other. But afterwards, I felt like I had had that conversation with him. I said, I just want to be friends. I understand he probably wasn't on the same page as me, but that kind of just happens in life sometimes. It was unfortunate. Neither of us really handled it the best way. I'm not going to say that, but yeah. Okay. I will just finish it so that people can ask questions that are relevant to any part. And then he talks about the Steve thing, and he says, like, he says that it's not true. Okay. Steve told me, Fed said, you guys are seeing each other, and he told me not to tell you that I know. And he's saying that that's not true, but I confronted Fed about it the very next day. I told Fed that I would talk about it prior to my stream when I spoke about the Yvonne and Lily situation. I feel like that's all that I can do. And he did not say that any of it was false up until very recently. So it's up to you guys to really say what you believe, but yeah. Again, I feel like this is more personal him stuff, like, oh, it was hard to live with someone that was seeing other people when I was interested in them. Understand? Looking back, I can certainly empathize with her. I could have invited her over more, and when she later brought up to me that she was feeling left out, I made it a point to start inviting her more, although she rarely accepted. So the claim that I was the primary reason she was isolated and that I ruined her chances with a friendship with them is a dramatic stretch. So again, I feel like he's kind of he is trying. And unfortunately, this is all so outdated, so I also don't even want to say, this isn't even how he feels anymore, but that's what I was told, essentially. If your friends come to you and they say, hey, this person made me look at you differently, and that's why I've had trouble being your friend, I think you're probably going to believe them. So it really isn't like me trying to make this dramatic stretch. That's kind of all I'm trying to say. And then he talks more about how we would get closer when I wasn't seeing someone. And I think that's fair. But also to me, it was like, for me, like my boundary of we're seeing each other isn't like, oh, we're like hanging out, we're close, this and that. So I think it was just like a messy situation in general. Again, not saying I handled it the best. Not saying he handled it the best either. So unfortunately, a lot of miscommunication and such. Again, some of this stuff is tough to read because I feel like him being like, she's lying to thousands of people. It's just like him venting and isn't really meant to be out there. And I think even now, as he said in his statement, like he realizes that all I was saying was my truth. I have no reason to lie about him. There's just really no need. And yeah, and perhaps my truth doesn't align with what he knows or what he feels he intended, but yeah. I think I don't really think I can speak to this. It's just him talking to Lily. this text I regret so much. So I told you guys I saw this document before, and for him to include, I don't really know why he included like this text where I was being very petty towards Jody. I think this was like 2 or 3 houses ago when Jody was first entering the friend group, and I had like heard perhaps some like not the best things, and so my perception was skewed. And I just said some petty stuff that is bad. And I want you guys to know, actually, that when I first saw this document and I spoke to Fed about it and we resolved things privately, I immediately, like as soon as I saw that text message, I immediately went to Jody and I was like, listen, this is never going to be public, but I want to apologize for what I said. because it's just BM and stupid, and she is such a lovely person, such a lovely friend of mine now, and I just regret ever saying that about her. It is really, really petty and stupid, but no malintent at all. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a situation where like, yeah, you see someone negatively and then, oh, you get to know them and it's like you had no idea what the heck you were talking about. So yeah, just stupid, petty, gossipy stuff, and I am so sorry for it. And I will say that wrongly, a lot of the things that I felt I said were just like, I felt like me and Fed were like best friends at one point, and there were things that probably came off to him as like more romantic that to me were just like, oh, like, I love you so much as a friend, which is so cringe to say, and I've learned my lesson. But yeah. Like, yeah. Also, everybody in the friend group like called each other honey bunny, which is like cringe again. But like, also, this is the way that I act with a lot of my girlfriends. I understand you don't act this way with your guy friends, but again, learning lesson. So yeah, it feels so weird to talk about this because it really is just like cringe. I think the Yvonne situation is important to address though, so let's get into it. In her stream, Poki says that I tried to get Yvonne fired because of the incident between us. This is just 100% false. I never tried to get her fired. I always wanted her to be part of OTV. Just for reference, the incident between me and Yvonne was in December of 2018. Actually, do you guys need me to read through this? Because he kind of clarified this in his most recent statement where he said, oh, Poki was never trying to say that I was trying to get Yvonne fired. She was trying to say that Yvonne almost got fired because of her behavior that stemmed from the incident between them. So here's my TLDR. For my stream talking about Fed felt like it made it seem like I was saying he was trying to get Yvonne fired. In reality, I was trying to say that Fed didn't directly try to do that, but she was almost let go from OTV because she had a lack of motivation towards the work, but her lack of motivation stemmed from what Fed had done to her and the fact that she didn't want to interact with him. So no, he didn't try to get her fired, but what he did to her made her so unmotivated that she almost lost her position. And I'm genuinely sorry to you guys, the public, if I didn't convey that message properly the first time that I said it, but that's what I meant. And I, at the moment, was so caught up in my frustration, seeing that in hindsight, it had nothing to do with who she is as a person or how much she cares about OfflineTV, because she cares so much and she does such an amazing job. And it just had everything to do with this really, really shitty situation that happened to her. So, to reiterate, and I'm so sorry for having to bring this back up, but after Fed touched Yvonne inappropriately, she just lost motivation to work on OTV stuff. And that led into all of these conversations that you see where we're like, do we need to get someone else on board? Like, what are we doing? I'm so sorry for my stomach. What are we doing? Like, we need to fix things, blah, 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 blah. That's where it all stemmed from. But in reality, like, it was nothing that was actually wrong with her. And it was from the situation that occurred. So, yeah. And yeah, I was also very frustrated thinking back to times where I didn't know about what happened and he would complain about her to me. And I'm like a pretty business-oriented person, and I'm like, I don't want OTV to die. What do? We need to fix this problem. Like, does she want to be a content creator? Does she want to do something else? Like, we need to talk about this, guys. And I think, yeah, and I think that's essentially what these text messages are. Oh my god. Do you guys hear my stomach? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I've been up for like 30 hours and I haven't eaten since yesterday. I'll eat after. I'm so sorry. But yeah, let me get through this. So yeah, basically I'm like, for me, it's like if she doesn't want this position, like we should get someone else, like a biz dev, someone who's really passionate about it, blah, blah, blah. And it makes me mad to see me talk like this because me at that time had no motherfucking clue what happened between Fed and Yvonne and why she was acting this way. Does that make sense? Okay, thanks. I think that makes sense. And yes, we did have a lot of talks and things worked out in the end. And actually, one of the biggest conversations that led to her staying was like, I just went downstairs after some meetings that we had and I spoke to her one-on-one. And I was like, and I really learned about like what she's passionate about, what she wants to do, and just hearing, quick side note, OTV has a bit of a problem where not a lot of, people in the past that we've hired for specific positions slowly turned into content creators. So that was a bit of a sore spot, especially for me. And so I was like, please no, another one bites the dust. Like, I don't want that to happen. But really all it needed was like a good conversation between me and her, and everything was resolved after. And I was like, no, we can make this work. Like, I can see that's not your end goal. So like we really, like, she's such a special part of OTV that obviously we wanted to make it work. So let's see if I'm missing anything. I think he's basically, I don't want to talk about Yvonne, like personally. The stuff relating to me, sure. Poki's claim or stream. I actually don't even know what this is. He shit-talked Yvonne and Lily, but huge. This is such a hard stream to do. The way he shit-talked Yvonne and Lily to me and others, particularly, I will just recount my experience, is so frustrating knowing what happened between them. The Yvonne incident happened, and Fed would start talking to me. I'm so sorry for being mature. He would talk to me about how Yvonne was lazy, and not working enough, and playing League all the time. And I was concerned. And he would say, oh, she like won't work on OTV stuff with me or brainstorm. Put a huge... Yeah. And that will be important to discuss in a momento. So this is where things get really dicey. We move into the new house and we have that new remote assistant. She's doing an awesome job and really helping. Yvonne, since her primary focus was merch, had a lot of free time, so naturally she started streaming a lot more regular and making YouTube videos. Some months passed and I get a text from Poki with screenshots of her convo with Lily where she brings up her concerns about Yvonne becoming a content creator. I responded by saying I thought we were cool with her going the content creator route. She responds with no. She started complaining that she was getting sponsor deals, posting a lot on her YouTube, etc. She said it's very weird, IMO. I just want to clarify again. Yvonne, get that bag. Whoever, get that bag. Again, the same thing had happened to us in the past, and I just didn't want someone else to like be brought on board and then just become a content creator. That's what I was bothered about. If she's like, but again, we had the conversation later on where she's like, no, like that's not my end goal and I like what I do with OTV. And that was enough reassurance for me. I don't even know what word I'm looking for. Poki suggested getting together and making a decision as a group. And yes, that's true. I always push for meetings so that we can all discuss things instead of like me just texting Fed. I don't recall this, actually. Quarantine has made it very, isn't really let her prioritized. Oh, I think this, I mean, this is Omega recent. Yeah, I don't really know. Okay, this is me trying to make sure OfflineTV doesn't die. I don't really know what he's trying to show by these messages, but I've always been someone in the group who's like, guys, we need like consistency. We need to make sure we have someone focusing on the group. And what happened was that, if you guys remember, during quarantine, Fed started streaming a lot more, and he kind of stopped being our main content guy. And can I just say, at this point, none of this matters, because OTV has been fucking great for like half a year, because we now have like a decent amount of employees doing an amazing job, and I no longer have conversations like this because things are running smoothly, and I'm so happy about it. It's so sad to have these random one-off out of context screenshots leaked to try to make me look bad, when in reality I'm just saying, like, I care about this thing. I want to make sure it works. What do we do if Yvonne does want to be a full-time creator? What do we do now that we don't have someone working on this, on that? Like, that's really all that I'm trying to do. I hope you guys can see that. Oh, I show these DMs because they further show that I had no interest in seeing Yvonne fired. But they're DMs of me. It doesn't even have anything to do with him, in my opinion. But again, this is all irrelevant because Fed now understands. I wasn't saying he was trying to get her fired. I was saying the incident that happened between us. The incident that happened between him and Yvonne is the reason she almost stopped being a part of OTV, which makes me very sad to know in hindsight. I want to make it clear I spent months debating on whether or not to release this because I know how much pain it might cause everyone involved. I know this will in no way clear my name, but it's been hard to sleep at night when I know there's so much misinformation, spiteful narratives, blah, blah, blah. I also don't think he feels this way anymore. I think I have always been very clear that the only reason I spoke out about my negative experiences with Fed was because, I don't know if you guys remember, but when Lily and Yvonne first came out with their statements, people were like shitting on them. And it was really just not okay. And I felt that I had to speak to his character in a sense. And to this day, I know that's something that was very impactful for both Lily and Yvonne. And I know Lily literally removed her tweet because of all the shit she was getting. Anyways, I think he said something about me collecting information. Any information I was collecting was for the intervention. Like, of course, when all us girls heard, like, oh, there seems to be a pattern here, I did start asking other girls around us, like, is everything okay? Have you had any issues like this? But it's just out of care, and it's out of, like, wanting the intervention to go well and for the right people to be there and for him to really understand the impact he's had on others. It's very recent, and this was the first time I opened up about my past experiences with Fed to all the girls in our friend circle. And this led to everyone slowly opening up about their negative experiences with Fed. Mind you, I felt like it was a good enough time to talk about my resentment because it was way past everything that happened. Mind you, yeah, I think this could be a good time to talk about, I did have a lot of pent up resentment towards Fed. Maybe I should read a bit more from my document. I think that would be helpful. But essentially, I just want to speak to that real quick. It is true, I did, but that's one of the main reasons why I tried to move out. That's it. I felt like it was a me problem. I was like, listen, we have like baggage. Our friendship is not what it once was, and I saw him differently. He probably saw me differently, and I was like, you know what? I love OTV. I don't want to cause any issues. So I started making plans to move out. And do you guys, would it be helpful if I spoke more in regards to that? I don't know if that's an important point. Okay. Because I also think there are like all these conspiracy theories that like I wanted Fed out of OTV or stuff like that. I want to make it really clear. I had no agenda when it came to Fed. And I think the biggest testament to that is that I moved out before he did. I was planning to move out to deal with my own resentment towards him and my own issues way before Yvonne came out with her statement and before Fed left the house. I think if I wanted to kick him out, like I would have just stayed and tried to, you know, like to me it just doesn't make sense. But also to further elaborate on why I moved out, and at the time I just didn't really want to talk about it because I didn't want any potential negative speculation surrounding OTV. But essentially, a big part of it was just not really feeling comfortable with him. Again, I don't want to badmouth him too much. I'm just saying that's how I felt, and I didn't want to feel that way in my own home. And also, I just wasn't close enough with anybody else in the house back then. I also felt like there were kind of barriers in certain places there, which luckily have broken down over the last few months, and I'm so happy. Like, I have never loved everybody in OTV more than I do today, genuinely. But when prior to moving out, I just felt like Fed was the closest person I was with. Our friendship had kind of soured, and I wasn't as close with anyone else. So I was like, listen, I'm just going to take myself out of the equation so we can still make content together and everybody is happy together. And I'm going to go live with some girls, no boy drama, and hopefully also a better separation of my work and personal life, because that is of large importance to me. So yeah, does that better explain my decision-making process for moving out? Okay, so let's see if I missed anything. Oh, I also want to mention that on stream she was pretty supportive about me getting help and changing, yet a month later I posted a photo on Instagram captioning it, "I'm working on myself." 1 hour later she unfollowed me off all social media, and 2 hours later she posted this tweet with comments taken straight from my post. It seems she is less interested in seeing me change and more interested in seeing me canceled. And okay, he did post this like a month after everything happened. And I did tweet. I was like, in this industry, a girl fucks up with a fake bitch. A guy fucks up. OMG King, don't worry, everybody makes mistakes. And I won't lie, that is some petty shit I did. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, they're unrelated. You know, like, yeah, I saw it and I was like, I feel like it's a bit soon. And I just, you know, I didn't want to see it. And maybe I tweeted a little petty thing or not. I don't know if this is like something I'm supposed to apologize for. I think I'll just admit, like, yeah, I did this. Is it the nicest thing? No, but also I was just so over it. I was really just so over it. And I'm gonna be honest about that. So, yeah. Oh, I will also admit and try to be like as transparent as possible. I need to eat. This also stems a little bit from seeing different situations with others, sometimes feeling like people, like I will, I don't know, I'll say some weird shit like 6 years ago and randoms will like never let it go. So I did feel a bit of like personally slighted. So I know this is also a sort of insecurity of mine, but also just being a petty bitch sometimes. Alright, the intervention aftermath. I just want to quickly mention all the steps I took after the intervention. As a house, they agreed that they didn't want to see me burn and that I was going to release my own statement with everyone's approval. When the intervention happened, I took it all very seriously. I was so sorry and remorseful. I went back to my room, feeling lost, scared, alone, complete shock. I called 3 people and told them what happened. Should I talk about this? Because I guess this isn't really relevant to me. Well, I'll just say a little bit. Essentially, he's saying, like, after the intervention, I spoke to some people about it, and the way those people talked to people in OTV about it made OTV feel like I wasn't taking it seriously, even though Fed felt he was taking it